effective learning. There's a book that I would highly recommend this book to anyone. It's called How People Learn. It was published in 2000 by the National Research Council, and it's really a summary of what we are learning from neuroscience, cognitive science, and psychology about what is an effective learning environment. And basically, what the research is showing is that if you want to create an effective learning environment, you need to have these four elements. You need a community-centered environment, learner-centered, knowledge-centered, and assessment-centered. The one point I want to make here is that the research is very clear. It's not one or the other, it's all of them, and they all interact and overlap. But for this presentation, we're going to be focusing on the knowledge-centered aspect. But again, you need to have all of these. And what this research is showing in all areas is that the learner needs to be actively involved in the learning. And for a knowledge-centered environment, if you think of a metaphor of learning the landscape, the learner needs to learn the landscape of the discipline or the domain. Now, my background is in the sciences. I'm a former high school physics teacher, computer science teacher. So when I'm teaching science, I want students to act like scientists. However, in the social studies, in learning to live in the landscapes, you might want them to act like a historian or an economist or a geographer. What are the different domains of social study, which is a pretty wide field. And so learning the landscape, learning to live in the landscape, is how do you maneuver around, what are the resources available, and how do you use those resources in conducting your activities. Well, what are some activities that a historian does? Research. Analysis. Presentation. Interpretation. Presentation. Discussion, writing, publishing. So the technology can be very helpful in supporting these activities. So one of the things that they talk about in How People Learn is that if you want to, I'm too far up. If you want to create a knowledge-centered environment, one of the best ways to do that is to develop problem situations. I've been around long enough to know that prior to the internet, web-based tools, getting your hands on primary resources was very difficult. Most school libraries are fairly limited. Given current economic situations, that can be even more limiting. So a lot of the tools that you are going to see today are going to be tools that can help the students learn to navigate and live in the landscape of social studies. And all of these are very active.